Welcome back. All right, so news of the day video for all you fine people for your Wednesday, October the 26th. Starting off with news out of Winnipeg, Rick Bowness will not be traveling with the team on their four-game road trip. He had COVID, recovered from that, but he's still feeling not that well. He was dizzy in the press conference after his first game back behind the bench. So it feels very precautionary and very just along the lines of just get better, get back as soon as you can. We've all had that going back to work a little bit too early after being sick. So yeah, hopefully Rick Bowness rests up and he's good to go as soon as possible. Minor trade. There are two minor trades this morning. I'll start with one at the bottom of the board. Cooper Zek has been acquired by the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for Evan Barrett, a forward going to Philadelphia. And if you're looking at that and going, who? Right there with you. So this just feels like it's an organizational kind of move. Defenseman acquired for a forward. And then we saw it again between Montreal and Chicago. So Chicago picks up a forward and a defenseman. They traded out a forward and a defenseman. So pretty much Chicago just changing things around. Chicago acquires forward Cam Hillis from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Nicolas Beaudin, who I'm assuming becomes Beaudin now that he is in Montreal. And yeah, so we'll see how this goes. Beaudin was a relatively highly thought of prospect not that long ago, so maybe Montreal's onto something. We'll see. Maybe their general manager sees something there in Beaudin, and maybe Cam Hillis is going to work out well in the Chicago organization. So the two guys here I've heard of. The two guys down here, I honestly I haven't looked them up, and I'm like, okay, one's 23, the other's 22. Odds are probably AHL moves only. Bad news for Ottawa fans today. It's right, when I wear a jersey of a team, it's normally not good news in a news video. Josh Norris. So DJ Smith has kind of cast a dark cloud over the Josh Norris situation, basically saying he might be done for the season. He may need shoulder surgery. Now, of course, he had a shoulder injury last year that took him out for 15 games. He still had a very good season, but he did have that shoulder injury, and this would be very troubling if it's related to the other injury or if it's the same shoulder. Even if it's a different kind of injury, it's still very alarming. So for Norris, who's still very young, starting out his career and all that, this is absolutely just terrible news. The one who does benefit from this, there's actually two. There's Shane Pinto may get more ice time as a result, and Derek Brassard, who came in on a tryout. Now he's likely a permanent fixture in the top four lines, and so we'll see how things go for Ottawa. So far, so good without Norris. Of course, they're 4-2 on the season, but they're going to have to keep that up. And Norris, honestly, really good goal scorer. They will miss him, right? When they're going through their scoring droughts, as every team does, I'm sure looking at the lack of having Norris in the lineup will be one of the talking points. So hopefully he's not out for the whole season, but we'll see. It is looking like it's going to be more of a long term situation. Phil Kessel, of course, last night in dramatic fashion set the new record, 990 straight games played. He was congratulated by Keith Yandel from his NHL brethren, who he replaced as the new Iron Man in the game, and also congratulated by Cal Ripken, baseball's Iron Man. And I remember Ripken's streak and how I seem to remember there were times that he would get an at bat and get replaced, but that's a whole other discussion where it felt like, oh, okay, so that was just to get him further into his consecutive games played. Okay. But I will say this with Phil Kessel. There's never been a point where Kessel was going to be a healthy scratch. There's never been a debate about whether or not he belongs in the lineup. Is he a physical player? No. But playing 990 straight games in a game that is as difficult as the NHL is, and he's certainly taken his share of hits, it is remarkable. So Phil Kessel, the everyman, also gets his 400th goal last night. It's a very good story. Now, I only did a career video on him, 2.5 months ago, so I'm not just doing a video on Kessel today, but probably throw something together at some point soon where we have a discussion about the Iron Men of the game. But I've seen some detractors of Kessel, and it's the exact same detractions that were made when Doug Jarvis set the record that Yandel broke. The same detractions that were made about Yandel when he broke the record from Jarvis. And it is interesting how, a player will set a record that it's historic. It's a record. And people will immediately say, well, no, because... No, just stop. Just stop. All right. Good news for Boston fans. Probably not good news for the rest of the league on numerous fronts. Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusque skating together at practice and discuss. Marchand wasn't supposed to be back till December 1st. His statement was he was going to be back for November 1st, and I said, that's optimistic, but it's going to depend on what doctors say. Well, if he's skating on that line, that means that it is October 26th. He's ahead of schedule. He may very well beat his own timeline of November 1st. Charlie McAvoy, not as close. He was talked to last night. He was interviewed during the Boston broadcast against Dallas and discussed the difficulties of going through what he's going through and watching the game from above and all that, but still trying to cast it in a positive light about what you get to learn when you're watching the game like this and all that fun stuff. But he wants to be out there playing. So with Marchand back in the lineup, that means they're just missing McAvoy now, and so they've done very well. They are 6-1 to this point in the season. That's remarkable without a defenseman who is one of the best defensemen in the league. So very impressed with Boston. We'll see if they keep it up. On the other side, you've got Vancouver. Now, Vancouver has put Besser on the IR, so all of the he's getting traded speculation will simmer down at least a little bit. As soon as he wasn't at practice, that was the discussion. Is he getting traded? Lazar has also been placed on IR, which it's rough because Lazar's actually been good. I know the Canucks are off to an 0-5-2 start. There's not much that's been good, but Lazar's been good, and so that's tough. But they do call up Dries and Lockwood. I'd like to see Lockwood have a good call up. Dries, I do like Dries. I've talked about that before. Watched him plenty here in Abbotsford. I really think it's just that he's on the smaller side because he's a good player. I think his size might be why he's not in the National Hockey League. But yeah, so we'll see how things go for Vancouver. But at 0-5-2, it gets really the math in terms of how many points they have to get from here. It becomes tough. Like I've said, if it's 100 points, that means they need 98 points now in 75 games. So they need to be 23 games above 500 from here to maybe make the playoffs. It gets really difficult. Because I understand that there's people who still see this being kind of melodramatic, but that's the reality. That's the math. It will probably take 100 points to make the playoffs in the West, although with the way the West has started out, maybe it'll take 90, right? And then that makes it a little bit easier, but still, with the way they've played those first 7 games, turning that around is going to be tough. Now, the Arizona Coyotes, who have a record-long road trip coming up. They have a 14-game road trip coming up. Well, they've got their first home game after a 6-game road trip on Friday. They will be playing at home against the Jets. Good call. Arizona against the Jets, that's a good call in terms of the first team to come in and see Arizona in their new home at ASU. Mullet Arena, which is just a bizarre name for an arena. Better than Crypto.com, but everything is better than Crypto.com. But yeah, so their first home game will be Friday, and it will be interesting to watch that. At the very least, now that they're not in Gila River, I would hope that the lighting for their broadcasts won't be so dark. I mentioned that during reviews last year, Arizona games, it was like, is the arena dark or is it just the way they shoot it? And people who go to the games told me, no, the arena, everything's fine when you're there in person. It is how it's filmed. It's how it's shot. And it does look a lot darker on camera than it looks in person. So hopefully we won't see a dark arena. And it will be, I will be curious to see if it feels like a really rowdy AHL atmosphere in that it's 5,000 people, or is it going to feel like a normal NHL game and we really don't notice the difference on TV when we're watching it? So that'll be a curiosity for me, and I do wish Arizona the best with this because now they're down the rabbit hole. They're probably a few years away from having that arena in Tempe that they need, and once they get that, that should quiet some of the naysayers. Won't quiet all of them. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.